Welcome to my channel Stars and Stripes Stories. Today's story will take you on a journey you will never forget. Imagine you are on a plane, 30,000 feet above the earth, when suddenly the engines go quiet, the cabin lights flicker, and fear spreads like fire through the passengers. But in that silence, when all hope seemed lost, a girl in row 17 stood up, and what she did next would make history. The flight began like any other. It was an early morning departure from New York, headed to Los Angeles. The passengers boarded half asleep, some clutching coffee cups, others already dozing off as they found their seats. The hum of the engines, the polite greetings of the flight attendants, the shuffle of carry-ons being stuffed into overhead bins, it was routine. Among the passengers was a 16-year-old girl named Emily Carter, sitting quietly in row 17. To most people, she looked like just another teenager traveling with her headphones and sketchbook. But Emily carried with her something no one else on that plane knew, a memory, a piece of her past that would soon become the lifeline for everyone on board. As the plane climbed smoothly into the sky, Emily gazed out the window. The world below grew smaller, rivers like silver threads, cities shrinking into dots of light. She was traveling alone for the first time, nervous but proud. Her mother had hugged her tightly at the airport, whispering, "Be brave, Em. You always are." 2 hours into the flight, everything changed. Without warning, the aircraft jolted violently. Passengers gasped, cups of coffee spilled, babies cried. The intercom crackled, then went silent. The steady hum of the engines, gone. Instead, there was an eerie quiet, broken only by the rush of air against the fuselage. Fear spread instantly. Some prayed, some screamed, others clutched the hands of strangers. A flight attendant rushed down the aisle, her face pale but calm, trying to reassure passengers. But her eyes betrayed something, even she didn't know what was happening. Up front, the cockpit doors remained closed. Minutes ticked by like hours. Then the truth emerged. The captain's voice finally came over the intercom, strained and breathless. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've lost both engines. We're attempting to restart, but we need everyone to stay calm." His voice cut off mid-sentence. Static followed. The passengers erupted. "What do you mean lost both engines?" Someone shouted. A woman began sobbing uncontrollably. A businessman tore at his seatbelt, pacing the aisle. Panic became contagious. Emily's heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She remembered sitting beside her father years ago in a small airfield hangar. He had been a decorated Air Force pilot before he passed away, and she used to beg him to let her sit in the cockpit of the trainer jet. He had explained everything, the yoke, the throttle, the instruments. She had absorbed it like a sponge, her father smiling at how quickly she learned. He used to say, "One day, Emily, you'll know what to do when no one else does." Those words echoed now. She unbuckled her seatbelt. A man in the aisle barked, "Sit down, kid. This isn't a game." But Emily kept moving, steady and determined, toward the cockpit. Flight attendants tried to stop her, but something in her eyes, a mix of focus and unshakable resolve, made them hesitate. One of them whispered, "Let her through." Inside the cockpit, chaos reigned. Both pilots were drenched in sweat, frantically flipping switches, trying to restart the dead engines. Warning alarms blared. They looked up, startled, as the cockpit door creaked open. "What are you doing here?" The co-pilot shouted. Emily's voice was calm. "I know this plane. My dad taught me. Let me help." The captain hesitated, torn between disbelief and desperation. But one look at the failing gauges and the altimeter spinning downward convinced him. With trembling hands, he motioned for her to sit in the jump seat. Emily slid into place, her fingers brushing the controls like old friends. She scanned the instruments, recalling her father's lessons. "We've lost power to both turbines," the captain muttered. "I know," Emily whispered. She began calling out procedures, steps her father had drilled into her years ago during long afternoons at the airfield. The pilots followed, half in shock at how this teenage girl knew emergency checklists better than they did. In the cabin, passengers sat frozen, listening as muffled voices drifted from the cockpit. The plane continued its silent descent, 30,000 feet dwindling to 25, then 20. Fear tightened its grip. Mothers clutched children. Strangers held hands. A priest quietly whispered prayers. But in row 17, an empty seat stared back, a reminder that sometimes courage does not stay seated. Emily's hands moved with certainty. She directed the captain to cycle the fuel pumps, instructed the co-pilot to attempt a windmill restart. Still nothing. The altimeter now read 15,000. Time was running out. The captain finally said, "We're going to have to ditch in the ocean." Emily shook her head. "Not yet. There's one more way." Her father's voice was alive inside her memory. "If standard restart fails, use gravity and airflow. Force it to breathe again. Pitch down 5 degrees, she ordered. The captain hesitated, then obeyed. The nose dipped, wind screaming past the fuselage. Passengers cried out as the plane tilted. "Now, ignition again," Emily shouted. The co-pilot flipped the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, like a miracle, the left engine coughed, sputtered, and roared back to life. Cheers erupted in the cockpit. Passengers felt the plane shudder as power returned. A moment later, the right engine followed, stabilizing the aircraft. The cabin exploded in applause, tears streaming down faces. Strangers hugged. Flight attendants wept openly. But Emily wasn't done. She calmly helped guide the plane back on course, her voice steady as she assisted the pilots with navigation. When they finally touched down on the runway, the landing was smoother than anyone dared hope. As the wheels screeched against the asphalt, the entire cabin burst into thunderous applause. People cried, clapped, and shouted her name. Emily sat quietly, her hands trembling only now that the danger had passed. The captain stood, his voice breaking as he addressed the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, today, we are alive because of a young woman who refused to sit in silence. Remember her face, because she's the reason you're standing here." The crowd parted as Emily walked down the aisle, every passenger reaching out to touch her shoulder, to thank her, to tell her she was a hero. But Emily didn't feel like one. She only felt her father's presence, his voice whispering, "I told you one day you'd know what to do." That night, the story spread across the world. News anchors replayed it again and again. The girl in row 17 saved a plane at 30,000 feet. But to Emily, it wasn't about fame. It was about carrying her father's lessons in her heart, about believing in herself when the world doubted her, about refusing to let fear win. And maybe, just maybe, it was about showing the world that heroes can rise from the most unexpected places, even a quiet teenager with a sketchbook, sitting in row 17. So next time you fly, remember this: courage doesn't always wear a uniform or carry a title. Sometimes, courage is a girl who once sat beside her father in a hangar. Who listened, who learned, and who refused to let hundreds of lives fall from the sky. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, if it made you believe in the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, then please like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible stories here on Stars and Stripes Stories.